Hey guys, welcome. Musky Road Rules Podcast, episode number 268. Guys, thanks for listening. Thanks for telling friends, and thanks for joining us every week to hear some musky news, fishing news, and just random nonsense. We love coming to you every week. And tonight's podcast is brought to you by Stealth Tackle. Stealth Tackle is clearly the leader. If you're looking for components, whether it be swivels, snaps, leader material of all types, I want you to check out stealthtackle.net. They've got little boxes with all the terminal tackle pre-rigged that you can buy. They've got all their standard leaders, whether you're looking for a casting leader, trolling leader, live bait rigs. They've got tons of stuff, so make sure you check that out at stealthtackle.net, along with some of the topwater baits they make. The One-Eyed Willie is one of them, and I think John's really going to like it. You're going to see him and myself at the Muskie Max in Pittsburgh coming up here in a couple weeks, and look forward to seeing you guys. So, again, stealthtackle.net. Check them out. I think you're going to enjoy it. You can also shoot us a text on our Lungin Lures text line. Lungin Lures, makers of the 22 short, 22 long, all kinds of quality crankbaits in tons of custom colors that you can find at lunginlures.com. Check them out at lunginlures.com. Text line number is 606-776-6570. Again, 606-776-6570. Let us know. Shoot us a text. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know somebody you'd want to hear on the show. Always looking for new guests. And, all good. On today's episode, we've got Mike Suick, owner of Suick Tackle, probably one of, if not the oldest musky lure company there is. How you doing, Mike?
Pretty good, Greg. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So are you guys the oldest? I'm looking at your website here. It goes 80-year tradition. So are you guys the oldest?
You know, I'm not aware of any that are older. There certainly could be, but I'm not aware offhand of any that are older.
Yeah, when was MEPS? Was MEPS has got to be right there with you, I would assume.
Yeah, they're right about that same time. I'm not exactly sure of the year, but I know it was the same time period.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Musky Lures goes, I can't, maybe the Pikey Creek Chub or Pikey Minnow, but none that have, that are still just as popular today. Is that the MEPS would be the only close one, I think, but, no one, when people think of musky fishing, one of the baits they always think of is the Suick. And I mean, it's just a staple. It's become a, in terms of a, like a jerk bait, it's kind of become a Suick being like the verb to describe a jerk bait. That's the way it is. It's kind of like the double 10 bucktail. People just say cowgirl a lot of times, right? It may not be a cowgirl, but that's what that's become the language of what people are saying. And jerk baits, I always think Suick, and it's just and it's something that even guys that don't musky fish, because I've done sports shows all over the country. I got to thinking the other day, I started doing travel shows in 1995. And that's 29 years ago. And it went from doing, now I basically just do musky shows. But, I used to do a lot of just general sports shows, and it went from, people asking me what kind of catfish that is, to actually knowing what a muskie is, which is nice. And but even back at just regular sports shows, if you say musky fish, and one of the few baits they've heard of is a Suick. So I think that's pretty cool, and it's got to make you feel good.
It does. It really does.
Now, you guys have done, we just got done with the Milwaukee Muskie Show over the weekend. It's Wednesday after the show. You guys have quite the impressive booth there, a lot of baits. How long does it take you to set that thing up?
Oh, it's quite a job. It takes two people about 5 or 6 hours to get that set up.
Oh, boy.
That's a job.
That's quite the undertaking. And I kind of like how you do it, though. You got like all your newer stuff in the middle there, unpackaged. It looks nice, kind of draws people in, and you know
Yeah.
the thing I've always said about musky baits is, you know, everybody tries to come out with the next one, the next one, the next one. The big thing to me is musky fishermen love colors. I mean, they love new color patterns and stuff, and you guys seem to come up with new ones every year. Where do you get the idea for these colors? Is it just what guys tell you, or are you just out or just bored in the shop one day and go, it looks good?
You know, kind of both. We
Yep.
we get a lot of advice on what we should do at the shows, so we take some of that, and we just play around a little bit and see what we think looks good, and you know what we think. So both really.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. I could see that. Now, you told me at the show, but for people, what is the number one Suick color?
The number one Suick color is probably bronze perch or the original sucker. That original sucker we've been making pretty much since the start, and it really hasn't changed too much. That one's just been a staple for as long as we've been around.
Now, the original sucker, that's the one, black back, yellow, little bit of yellow gold on the sides and white belly with, is that gold scale on it?
So that one's actually the wild sucker. That one's a little bit newer. Well, I say newer. It came out at probably mid-'90s or so. The original sucker is just the gray back with the gray scales and the white belly.
Oh, okay. I didn't even know that was the original sucker. I would think that'd be more of a Cisco.
Yeah. So I mean, that was one of the first colors we had way back when, and it's pretty much remained unchanged since then.
Sure. What is now? You know, when it was made, it was your great grandfather that made it. Do you
Correct.
know the history of kind of how it all came about?
Yeah, he started working on it in the mid 30s. 1939 was the year he actually had it finished. But
that was a little before my time.
Right, mine. Yeah, me too. A lot before. So, he was just a musky fanatic. Back then, they really didn't have a ton of lures. A lot of times, they were just fishing with suckers and trying to catch them that way. And when they were dying or injured, they would kind of flutter around a little bit and dive down, come back up, and do their thing. He was just watching them, and that's kind of how he came up with the idea of the Suick, is to just dive down and then kind of come back up to the surface and have a casting presentation.
Now back then, I mean, and it was it's not really something you see now, but they actually casted dead suckers, right?
Yeah, they did. They did all kinds of things.
I've seen like old articles and old pictures of how they kind of tied the sucker on the rig and was able to actually cast it and throw it. And all these guys now are bitching about a pounder, where you throw a 2-pound sucker out there all day. That's real.
Right.
I mean, not only is it heavy, but that thing stinks.
Right.
It's so they, and let's face it, the equipment, I've got some of the old reels, Matt from Matt's Reel Repair up there in Eagle River. He gave me some reels for just kind of in the house for decoration. And let me tell you, if I had to throw something on that very long, I would be not very good at it, because it's, there's some pretty, obscure, fishing equipment that, today we are so blessed with what we have, but what?
Right.
So he was basically trying to imitate some type of dying or injured sucker out there, and that's that was kind of how he got started with it.
Yeah, that's how it came to be. Yeah.
Now when did he decide that I got something here? I mean, when was that?
It took a few years. So he owned a bar here in Antigo.
Of course, he lives in Wisconsin.
Right. Yep. So if he wasn't fishing, he was in the bar, and that's kind of where the first sales took place.
Sure.
He just started selling them to people, and word of mouth kept traveling, and it just kept spreading. He got them in a few tackle shops then, and a few years after that, and back then it was all on consignment, so they'd just pay them for what they sold, and it just kept growing from there. I mean, I don't think he ever took any lures back. They always sold.
Mm-hmm.
So it just kept growing.
Do you have at the shop or at your all's house? Do you have an original?
We've got some from the early 40s, but not an actual original.
But you do have some from the early 40s?
Yeah.
You should.
Not a ton. I mean, a few dozen maybe. You
should bring some of the. I think it'd be cool. Bring one of those to a show and just have it, where somebody can't steal it. But
sure, yeah.
And just and show. I'd love to see it.
Mm-hmm.
I think those would be that would be something really, really cool to share with people so that you can see. Now, has it changed much? I mean, have you guys changed it much from the original, or is it still, if somebody's seen it, they'd go, yep, that's a Suick?
Not a ton. Yeah, it's definitely still recognizable. Really, the only thing that we did is square up the body a little bit. Some of those earlier ones were round. Well, they were all round. And they were a little bit unstable, so they worked really well, but for some people they didn't think they wanted something a little bit more stable. So we squared up the corners on it, and it was, once we did that, people were able to work it a little bit harder and still have something that was working well. So that's really the only change we've made throughout the years.
Okay, because I have an old one. I don't know how old it is. It was given to me by one of my past clients, who's actually deceased now, Don Chin, the Asian angler, as I like to call him. And he collected a bunch of Suicks, and he gave me one time. It's an all black one, just pretty rough. Okay. No, I don't even know if there's clear coat on it.
I don't think there was clear on any of them back then.
No, and it's an old one. You can tell it's more round. The hooks are quite a bit flimsier, thinner wire, and stuff. But I've got it in my shed at home, and there it definitely looks. But you can still look at it. Why did he? And this is maybe something you can tell me in the manufacturing too. What is the deal with the cut in the front there, with that kind of arch that you put in the front of the bait underneath the underneath the eyes?
Well, originally, and this is I'm kind of guessing here, but originally it did not have a metal tail. It had a wood tail, and I think that the arch came to be because that was kind of what would make it dive down, with that tail being fixed in one position. So
the originals had a wooden tail.
They did, yeah. So the metal tail was actually a mistake. He had mistakes. A couple that he was messing around with, and he cut the tail off by mistake and went, oh, geez, now what do I do? So he put that stainless tail in there, and then he realized, oh, geez, he can adjust it. So it worked even better. But the design kind of stayed the same. When did
this metal tail mistake, you said, when did he do that?
Pretty much right off the bat. Before he started selling them.
Oh, okay. So this was so all the ones that have been sold, all the ones he sold had the metal tail in it?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So a long time ago, he was able to, actually figure that out and get it, get it put together. So, well, that's pretty wild. It's just such it's just an iconic, it's an iconic bait, and you keep the metal tail all except for the very small one, right?
Yeah, actually the 4-inch was discontinued a few years ago, so right now the 7 is the smallest size we're making.
Okay, so you don't do the little 4s.
Have a metal tail. No, yep.
Oh, okay, and then you decided, then you went, and now you go, what do you got, 5 sizes now, 14 to 7?
Yeah, we got 7, 9, 10, 12, and 14.
Yeah, so when did, so the original Suick, was it the 9-inch?
9, yep.
Yeah, and that's the one that became the one. Now, when did on your sizes? I would assume the most popular is probably the 9 or 10.
The 9 by far, yeah. The other sizes are very popular, but the 9 is by far the most.
Sure. No, I totally get it. So how did those sizes come about? Do you remember?
Well, the 7-inch came about in the 70s, and then the 10 in the 80s. And the 10, that one took a while to actually take off. Back in the 80s, that was a really big bait, and it did not take off overnight. That took till probably the mid-90s before it became, popular. And then, now it seems you can't make them big enough. So every time we come out with a bigger size, it's a hit pretty much instantly.
Sure. No, the 10. I personally like the 10s because for me, I just think I like the way they run. So I like the 10-inch. The 10-inch weighted is usually what I buy on a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
but
that's my personal favorite too.
Yeah, I think that's great. But the one and I've talked to you about this at the show this year, the one that I really liked last year after spending a full season up on Lake of the Woods and really fishing a lot of rock structure, because before in Minnesota and other places that I'd been fishing, it wasn't really rock fishing much. It was more just weeds and stuff. But fishing a lot of rocks up here, those high impacts, your plastic ones, just the problem with the wood, I love the wood ones, but the problem is all the noses get absolutely destroyed.
They do
on them, and so that high impact is definitely, to me, a better choice for fishing in the rocks and stuff. What now you guys have done wood forever, still doing wood. What was the decision to do the plastic? When did that come about?
We came out with the plastic in 2013, and the idea behind it was we wanted to create a Suick that was absolutely so easy to tune, anyone could do it. Mm-hmm. So if you notice on the front of on the nose, it's kind of slanted a little bit. So that gives you the side-to-side action that people were trying to tune with the tail and the wood ones. Mm-hmm. So with the plastic, all you have to do is bend the tail down a little bit, and all the action is built right into the lure. And then also, it alleviated that problem with the chipping of the noses. You were able to fish it in places you really would never fish a wood one, in the rocks and in rivers and just places you'd never throw a wood lure. So that was the idea there. We wanted something super easy to tune and that was really, really durable.
Sure.
So that's the HI.
Yeah. No, I love, I love them both. Now, when you came out with the plastic, was there like a revolt? Was there people just going, you ruined it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Big time. Big time. And still today, there's still some people that will not give it a try. But I can tell you, talking to so many people doing shows and, all over the place, that people that try it almost 100% of the time love it. It's just getting them to try it.
Yeah, no, I love it. I still have a mix of all kinds, like most people. I've got a mix of all of them, but the plastic to me, just after fishing, like I said, a full season here on the woods last year, the plastic chartreuse and black polka dot was my, the dumbest pattern in the world. Was the one that I caught, on my Suick fish. That was by far the most popular one. And the nose is still great. I mean, I got some of the custom colored wood ones you had last year and used them, caught fish on them with a copper and black one and like it was like a hot perch pattern you had. And, still love them. They still work, don't get me wrong. But the noses, boy, they are some stubby noses on them now after hitting the rocks so much. And that 10-inch high impact, that thing, she's a workhorse. You can beat the hell out of it.
Oh, and, they do. They hold up.
And let's face it, part of musky baits and stuff that make them cool is when they get a lot of hook rash on them and they look all gnarled up. And that's what makes a cool bait. I love seeing those old baits that guys. I remember Ty Sennett had a Suick. It was in one of those sucker patterns, and this thing, you couldn't even tell what color it was. It had gone clear to wood. The hook rash on it had damn near went through the entire bait, and it was probably the most gnarled Suick I've ever seen in my life. I was like, that is the coolest bait I think I've ever seen. And and it was one, and he still was using it. We were up at Lake of the Woods. He caught a fish on it. I mean, it was I asked him, I go, what color is that foreskin? Because it was just brown and just nasty looking thing. But I'm sure you've seen some pictures of some pretty beat up ones.
Oh yeah. I've seen some where the screw eyes beat down so far into it, I don't even think you could get a leader on or off. I mean, it's just pounded right into the nose.
Yep. That's the thing. And talk about, let's, because I have a lot of people that come to the booth, and not a lot. When I say a lot, I think it's just a matter of speech, but guys come up and say, how do you tune your Suicks? And people in the boat always ask me how to tune them. And, for me, I'm just looking for a stop and go action that stays underwater. And I think that's why I like the 10-inch better, because I think they're a little easier to wrangle versus the 9s. I think they're a little easier, and I think the 12s I'm going to start going to some 12s this next year. I've actually, when you guys first came out with a 12, I got some, and one of my bigger fish that year, I got a 53-incher on one, on a gold 12 up in Minnesota, and really liked them, and I liked it, but some of them you get. And again, it's just part of the wood, and in all baits are this way. But I had one it was a 12. It was weighted, but it would take in so much water it would slowly sink. And I loved that one because I could get it really deep, and it didn't take a lot to work. Now let me tell you, it was a son of a bitch to throw sometimes once it got heavy. But
right.
It was a great deep weed line bait, and like I said, I ended up catching a lot of fish on it, and like 53 was the biggest. But they work so well, and that was one of the things that I actually think that's why a lot of guys like the wood ones, is they do when they start soaking up water, boy, they take on another action. But
they do.
How do you like using them? I know you fish yourself, and guys there. Locally that you talk to, buddies, how do you guys like tuning them?
I really don't go too crazy with it, and I think that's another question we get a lot at the shows and stuff too, is how do you tune it? And I think people are almost disappointed when I tell them that you don't really have to do a whole lot. You bend the tail down a little bit, and like you said, you look for that stop and go action and maybe a little bit of side to side, and that's really all we do. You don't. There's so many people that cup the tail or bend the corners or make a V. And I've never personally really seen where that was a huge benefit. You wreck some lures, but I just don't know that it's totally necessary.
No, I get it. There's all kind. The biggest thing for me, what I've learned is, you definitely, bend that tail down some, but messing with the screw eye, I think means more than back there. Sometimes tweaking that screw eye to the left or right, maybe just because of the grain of the wood or whatever that bait was made out of, or, was there some kind of weird thing going on with it? You might have to, tweak the screw eye to the left or right. But the tail, I want it to bend just down a little bit, and because I don't do the corner thing or any of that. And I've tried it. I mean, I've fucked up a lot of them. Don't get me wrong. I've paid your electric bill. The Suicks I've went through, but that thing, I think the screw eye means more than the actual tail.
It does, and especially, when you put it in, you do your best to make sure it's straight, and they're straight. But if there's a little bit of, variance in the grain of the wood, it's going to follow the grain.
Yep.
So inside, it's, it followed that grain, and sometimes you do have to tweak it a little bit, or twist it, or bend it left or right. And when you do that, that difference is noticeable right away. The tail, it isn't a super instant, tune.
No, to me, the tail is just like a guide to tell it to go down, right?
Right. Yeah.
And I know guys that really bend the tail down. Ty was the first one I'd ever fished with, and Ty, he caught I mean, God knows how many fish on Suicks. But that tail, he would bend that tail almost straight down and work it with a softer rod and just give it little ticks. And boy, he could make that thing walk around out there.
I bet.
But just bend that tail down. Mine, I know when the tail's, like when you hit a rock and you go to pull it and it's like, blump,
right.
You're like, oh boy, okay, something ain't right out there. Yep. That's the thing. Now, when my first jerkbait fish I ever caught was on a Suick. And I got to thinking about it. It was a little over, I was like 13, and so I'm 45 now, so 32 years ago. Was on a Suick, and it was back then you could buy 3 of them in Bass Pro. I remember it. You could buy 3 of them in Bass Pro, and it was like the green and white one, the sucker one, and a fire tiger one. For like, you could buy 3 of them for $30. I think's what it was at the time, and we got that. Now back then, in the early '90s. These didn't come with split rings.
No, they didn't.
Yeah, I mean that, and I've got a few still that don't have split rings. What was the reason for that? Do you know?
I know they were offered with split rings and without. And
okay.
I don't entirely know why that was.
It wasn't from the...
It didn't last very long. It was just a matter of 3-4 years that they came that way, and then everything went back to split rings.
The great split ring famine of the late 80s. Had hit, and no bait shall have. But no, these these didn't. I've got an orange and black dot one still that doesn't have split rings. But I was just wondering on that. What was the deal? But yeah, you could buy 3 of them 9-inch Suicks in like a little package out of Bass Pro, out of the magazine. It was like on the musky section of the magazine, which was maybe 3/4 of a page. Suicks was in there. It was like Suicks, Meps, and Burmek. The Burmek B1 you could still buy, and that was. And that was it. But the baits, though, what I was going to ask, what is like, with the colors? I remember a guy coming over to the booth and saying, "Well, it's this color, and you're like, "Well, we've never stopped making a color." Is that true?
Mm-hmm. For the most part, I mean. Yeah, we've got so many colors. We need to discontinue a bunch, to be honest. We've
like how many colors do you think you make?
It's just over 40.
Oh wow! But I mean, like custom stuff at the shows, you've got more than that.
We do, yeah. No, there's been stuff like that we've made. Certain runs of a color, of particular colors and stuff. But yeah. Stock colors that we've added to the program, though, we've never cut one.
Oh wow! So yeah, you need to get in there and trim some fat.
yeah, we could, but somewhere there's somebody that's using that, and you just hate to cut it.
Oh, I get it. No, there's a bunch of guys. As long as they want it, and as long as it doesn't take too much out of you, you're good to go. What now this year at the show that was new, you had like the weight system put in the 9-inch high impacts, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So tell us a little bit about that.
So we started that with the Franken Suick back in 2019. I guess we didn't really realize what we were starting back then because we wanted to have the 14-inch be super customizable, and so that's where we started with it. And then through the years, we kind of spread it through the rest of the program. We went to the 12-inch next. 9-inch high impact was last year, and this year we custom weighted the 10-inch.
Oh, the 10-inch, my bad.
So, yeah, with that, you kind of can accomplish the same thing that people were trying to do when they were trying to get them waterlogged so that they would work real slow or maybe sink, like you mentioned.
Sure.
Now you can do it right off the bat with the weights. So you can weight them down so that they sink. You can weight them so that they're neutral, or so they rise real slow. It's really unique, customizable lure.
No, I love adding weights and stuff, and the weight systems. Those weight systems that you're putting in there. I remember, I think the first ever weight system I seen was either on a Suick or a Reef Hog back in the 90s. And I don't even know who started that, making those weights. Do you?
No, I mean, those weights have been around as long as I've been around. I don't think a lot of people really use them a ton.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's face it. It takes you got to get a drill, and you got to go. If you want to, all they are is little. Most of the inserts are just, you can buy them at Lowe's. They're just the screw-in wood inserts is what they are. But you got to trust yourself to drill it in there, drill it in the right spot, and also put a little epoxy on it to hold it in there. For me, the first ones I did, I put them in there, and then because you can kind of screw them in there, and I always end up drilling the wrong size hole, and when I screw it in, I break the top of it off. And so I do that, and then the ones that I did get in there, I'd go to fish it, and about 2 hours after I'd fish, after fishing it, the lure would start working weird. I'd look, and the weight fell out. So, I know how the deal works. I mean, I know how all the shit comes together. So if someone else does it for me, you feel like, well, they must know what they're doing, and it works out way better. But I love, I love playing with weights. My whole, before the weight system, what we always did, and I'm assuming it's what a lot of guys did up here or in the South, we always did. We just hung a bass casting weight on the front hook. And,
I've heard of that too. Yeah, bell sinker, whatever. Yeah,
just put a bell sinker on there. I know guys that have done the solder, wrap solder around the hooks to give it more weight. So, I mean, there's a bunch of ways that you can do it, but the actual screw-in system, it gives you an idea of you've got okay, this is a 1/4 ounce. This is a 1/2 ounce, and you can play because your alls are weighted in 2 places, right? You can weight them in 2 places.
Yeah, so we've got where the traditional weight should be behind the front hook, and then we put another one in front of the front hook as well, which totally changes the action of the lure. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
I that front weight, because most people, when you weighted them, again, like I said, it's just, at the time, it's you hang it on that front hook and you just hang the bell sinker and there you go. But, what do you think it does, that front weight there underneath the gill or whatever you would call that in the cup up there? What do you think that does to the bait?
So I think it makes it more unstable for one, but then it really, really weights that nose down. Instead of, kind of like a gliding type jerk down, it stands almost, more up and down than we're typically weighted behind the hook. So, say you're working in weeds or something, people always talk about, well, they like that they can work it through there because they can pull it down and then it backs up right back to the same path.
Sure.
It helps that immensely. And then even just working around rocks, I mean, it just changes it so much. It's something the fish haven't seen. Yeah, no,
I get that. I really like it. I really, really like it, and I think it's a cool deal. What you're able to do with that. So I'm a big fan of the. Having that on there and having it be able to just to bop around and go through structure, because that's one thing. I mean, do you know a lot of guys? Do you guys sell a lot of unweighted Suicks?
We do sell a few. Weighted outsells them probably 2 to 1, but we do still sell a few.
Yeah, I like the unweighted in weed situations. But I still think what I like about this weight system you're doing is you can just buy one and you can adjust it to whatever you need.
Yeah, and it'll work without the weights just fine. It's just basically an unweighted Suick then.
Yeah, but for a lot of people that becomes a bit of a, you got to, an unweighted one, you have to work. You've got to do some working with it there, and that will I just know with a lot of guys that's something that is it makes it a little bit tougher on them. Because of the how fast and stuff you have to work it. And I think people get frustrated too because they have a hard time keeping it down. I don't think they realize how hard you do have to work it, and then they wear out of it pretty fast. Yeah, and it pops out of the water on them and all that, and it's just not what they signed up for. Right. Fishing's relaxing.
No, not musky fishing.
Not musky fishing sometimes. Jesus. But no, I like all that. What is for you? What's your favorite color? Do you have a favorite color one that works up there? Because you're still up in Anago, right, or near there?
Yeah. Yep. So I still fish Pelican Lake, Three Lakes Chain, that area. My favorite color for years has been the wild sucker. That's the one you were describing with the black back and the yellow scales and the white belly. It does seem no matter where you go, that color works.
Yeah, no, I've probably went through 24 of them in my life. They just, every body of water I've fished, I think that's a bait that, it's always in the tackle box is the wild sucker, and it just seems to work whether it's dark water, clear water. That was the color that I was telling you that Ty had that was so beat up. Sure. Was that wild sucker. And it just doesn't seem like it. Yeah, it seems like anywhere you go. How did some of the colors come about? So like again, down south and even up north, I know it's popular, is your polka dot colors. Why and how did those come about?
Those have been around as long as I've been around. I think it's just the contrast myself, but they're still popular.
Oh, I love them. I mean, in the South, I love the orange and black polka dot because we deal with a lot of mud and dirty water. Up north last year, Lake of the Woods, the chartreuse and black polka dot. Well, and even some of the Clearwater lakes. I got on a 10-inch Suick, one of my clients. This was many, many, many years ago. Chris Drury from Texas. He lived in Chicago at the time on Lake Miltona over in Alexandria. Got a 53-incher on and that lake's clear as a bell on a orange and black dot Suick, 10-inch. Really? Yeah. So they it seems like that those color patterns do nothing for the natural, but they are they definitely stand out. But I just didn't know if there was a reason, but I mean, because is there any stories behind any of the colors of why you do that one?
God, I'd have to think. You typically, we're just trying to either mimic some type of a bait fish or find contrast. It seems that contrast is just a killer. If you get the right one, that's what works.
Sure.
So, like the Raging Perch color we've got in the High Impact series, that color, whatever it is about that color, it catches fish, and it's bright orange, yellow, and then some black, which is just contrast.
Which one is the Raging Perch? I'm looking here now.
It's got a black back and black tiger stripes, and then the side is kind of yellow with some orange. It's got a white belly.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's a pretty popular one for you?
Yeah, that's a fish catcher there.
That's been a good one. What is so like right now, what would you say is your top 5 selling colors that you'd have?
Oh, probably that Raging Perch, Bronze Perch. We've got a color called Storm, Wild Sucker, and Black.
Just plain old black, huh?
Yeah.
The what color is your Storm?
That one is got an orange belly The orange comes up the side, and then it's got some yellow scales underneath black scales with a black back.
Oh, okay. That's been a pretty popular one. That's got to be a newer color, isn't it?
Well, I mean, we say newer, but it's probably been around 20 years or so.
So, well, maybe not as new. Now I see, you guys are doing some of the lace you've got lace patterns on some. You've got
Yep.
You've got the hollow form on some. Now you guys did the sideways Suicks for a while too, right?
Oh yeah, we did. Yeah, the Red Hots. We still do that. Yeah. Yep.
How did those things come about?
So that came about in the early 2000s, I think it was. With the Suick trying to mimic a injured bait fish, the idea with that was sometimes they lay on their side.
Sure.
So they're painted sideways to kind of mimic a fish on its side. So that's got the big eye on the bottom and the red hooks, and yeah, it was supposed to look like with a fish laying on its side and given one last kick to go down.
Okay. So. And those, do you guys still making those?
We do, yeah. Actually, those are still pretty popular.
Still pretty popular. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
How many outlets do you guys have? How many stores do you guys sell your baits in?
Oh, I'd have to look. Honestly, I'm not sure off the top of my head.
A lot.
Yeah, a lot. We're most of the chains. We've got so many independents. I really don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah. Do you guys do a lot of sales through your website and stuff, or is it more still through stores?
It's mostly through stores. I mean, we offer them on the website, just mainly for people that don't have access to a store.
Sure.
But yeah, most of our sales is through stores.
Okay. And then the 9-inch ones you think are probably your top sellers?
Oh yeah.
Nice. Well, that's pretty awesome. Well, I just Mike, I do appreciate you coming on here, and not only do you make the Suicks, I mean, you guys got the Cisco Kid line, you've got the curly Sue line from the Shack Attacks.
Yep.
When did you get into the Cisco Kid stuff? When was that?
That was 1993, actually. They were down in Florida, and I believe they were out of business for a couple of years before we got them. And we moved everything up here to Anigo, and we've been making them here since 93.
Nice. Yeah, you've got a bunch of different sizes and stuff in that. I picked up some of the Wranglers from you this weekend to give them a try, short line trolling down south this spring, so I'll let you know how that goes. But no, you guys got a whole line of stuff there, and some of the topwater, the Night Stalker topwaters that you're doing, and so a little bit of everything that you got going on there. But I'm assuming the Suick is the breadwinner.
It is, yeah. I mean, we've started a lot of different things, but the Suick still is the main one.
Oh, I'm sure. So, what would be the best way for somebody to? What is the website that somebody could go to see some of your products?
It's just www.suick.com.
Suick.com. Well, at least see you got the website early enough you could keep your own name. That's nice.
Right? Yeah.
It's not Suick1.com. When you have to do that. So, do you guys have a shop up north that people can come stop in, or do you?
We really don't. No, we're just a manufacturing facility here. There's really not a whole lot to see, but yeah.
If they stop by, you put them to work packing boxes and packing orders, and
we sure could, yeah.
getting stuff out there. I totally get it. So, well, Mike, I appreciate you coming on here. I look forward to doing it again sometime. And we're happy that you were able to take some time away from your day and come on the podcast with us. So I do appreciate it.
Awesome. Yeah. No, thank you, Greg. I appreciate it too.
So, all right. Well, you have a good day.
Thanks, Greg.
No, bye.